Welcome to West Virginia Uncovered as we bring this week's news and the people, places, policies, and events that are shaping the Mountain State. I'm your host, Leyla Gulen. This week, we will be joined by former U.S. Attorney and current candidate for Attorney General, Senator Mike Stuart, Congressional candidate and January 6th political prisoner, Derrick to discuss their races and get their opinions on the current legal issues of former President Donald Trump. We will also check in with the organizers of the Appalachian Festival in Beckley. We're joined by former U.S. Attorney and current candidate for West Virginia Attorney General, Senator Mike Stuart. Senator Stuart, welcome.
Hey, great. Thanks very much for having me today.
Well, I'd like to start today with your take on the recent announcement by President Donald Trump that he will likely be indicted for his role in the January 6th protests.
Yeah, so as a former member of the Department of Justice, I will tell you, I revere the Department of Justice, but it breaks my heart today, the two-tiered justice system we seem to have found ourselves with in America. The foundations of America is really built in our justice system. And I think most people across our nation, until recently, believed that it might be uncomfortable, it may not be perfect, but it ultimately works. And I think folks are questioning that today. When I worked as a United States attorney and got to be an advisor to attorney generals, three of them, one of those attorney generals gave me a line that I've never forgotten. And I think it's a critically important line to always remember as a prosecutor. We investigate crimes, not people. We investigate crimes, not people. My concern with these indictments is that it appears that the investigation is of a people. It's Donald Trump. And I think if you remove the name Donald Trump, if it's not Donald Trump, these indictments don't happen. And so I think it's incumbent. My heart bleeds, and it's a very sad time for me to see what's happened at the Department of Justice. A two-tiered justice system, not acceptable for America. And it needs to be balanced, fair, and equal for everyone, regardless of political party or partisanship or personal animus. And it just doesn't seem that way today. So I'm frustrated. And when you see 35,000 emails, many of a confidential nature that are held by Hillary Clinton, where there's intentional destruction, intentional bleach bidding and hammers used on devices, Hunter Biden, who clearly is not an energy expert, but signed some of the sweetheart energy deals as an energy executive to countries like China. But there's no accordant accountability or responsibility. I think the American people have a right to be frustrated and cautious that our justice system is only working in one direction. And that doesn't, listen, I'm not in any way suggesting that if you are engaged in a crime in which you ought to be indicted, that in any way this forgives that. But I think most people are a little curious and a little cautious and not so certain this justice system's working the way it ought to in America today.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. You've been known as a tough prosecutor. What would you say about yesterday's news rejecting the plea deal for Hunter Biden?
So I was glad to see that rejection, but let me say this, that frankly, when you look at a book written by Hunter Biden, where very clearly he's admitting to felonies, I can say this, I don't believe he's a great artist. And when he's selling artwork at the White House to foreign adversaries for huge amounts of money, whether it's
$500,000 in some cases.
It's remarkable. I can think of a lot of things to do with $500,000, but buying Hunter Biden artwork is not one of them. But I will say this, someday I hope, I aspire to be a great artist, and I'm not one. I would love to sell some of my artwork for that, but I'm just not very good. And so my point here is that I think it's troubling, should be troubling the American people. Clearly, there's a lot of favoritism going on right here. But all I can hope for is transparency. And like I said earlier, I revere the Department of Justice. It is a critical component of what we understand as Americans, that our justice system will be blind and fair and equal in its application of the law. And I think we have a limited window here. to be able to fight for a justice system that is fair, impartial, and equal. And we ought to be quite concerned today. The diversion of the gun charge, let me talk one bit about that. So as a United States attorney, felons or folks using a firearm in the commission of a heinous crime, I can tell you during my term as United States attorney, not once, not one time during my entire term did I give pretrial diversion to someone with a firearms offense, especially one as bad as Hunter Biden. I can tell you this, I don't know another United States attorney, and that's a pretty small network of people, and I still maintain those networks. And I think there's a lot of outrage among the former U.S. attorney community as to pretrial diversion for something that's incredibly improper. In fact, the Department of Justice manual prohibits it without the consent of the Department of Justice and the Deputy Attorney General or the Attorney General. One question that's not been asked here is, did the Department of Justice, through the Deputy Attorney General or the Attorney General, set the deal, provide permission for this pretrial diversion? If so, it's a pretty serious matter. But I can tell you, pretrial diversion for a firearms offense, incredibly unusual, didn't happen one time under Stuart. And I don't know another United States attorney where that happened.
Well, it sounds like the court concurs with you on the Hunter Biden art piece of it. It sounds like he's going to have to go out and get a real job. But moving on, next, let's talk about the Attorney General's race, if we could. This week, we learned, in addition to Senator Ryan Weld, Auditor J.B. McCuskey, has left the governor's race to run for Attorney General. So how would you compare your candidacy to the other candidates?
Well, I can say this. The other two candidates are like two pieces of blackberry pie. One's blackberry cobbler, one's blackberry pie. Like, what's the difference? They're exactly the same. They're two sides of the same coin. Both moderates, both not supporters of President Trump. In a state, let me point out, that supports President Trump in some polls by 75%, 80%. Republicans and Democrats support President Trump. This isn't a new thing with my opponents. You can go back to 2015. 2016 when he was the nominee, 2020 when he's running for re-election, and now as he's running for a second term as president in 2024. It's hard to find anything on the record from these guys with respect to support for President Trump. I think it's a valid question that needs to be asked to both of these folks. Why is it that you don't express support for President Trump? It's one thing. Listen, I understand that they may not support him, but I think it's a fair question that voters in West Virginia ought to get the answer to. They are clear moderates. And so when I look at the difference between me and them, it's night and day. It truly is. I'm a conservative. I'm an America First candidate. I was a real prosecutor who did real prosecutions. I prosecuted 2 members of the state Supreme Court. I took enough fentanyl off the streets during my term to kill more than 40 million people. I led the largest raids in the history of West Virginia. I had the largest Medicaid fraud prosecution in the history of West Virginia. I had the largest elder fraud takedown in the history of West Virginia. And I can go on and on and on. I have real experience. I'm a tough prosecutor. I doubled the average length of sentence while I was U.S. attorney. I make no apologies for that. I think there's a proper place in our justice system for redemption and second chances, but bad guys who sell drugs, who do bad things in communities, ought to be behind bars. When you compare my record of really doing stuff and getting big things done, frankly, to be Attorney General will be very similar to what I did as United States Attorney, but with a smaller budget. I had a bigger team. I had multiple offices. I headed up the FBI, the DEA, the United States Postal Inspection Service, the IRS investigative services, HHS investigative services, as well as my team of prosecutors. And that job impacted me a great deal. I may have left being United States Attorney, but it didn't leave me. I carry in my wallet every single day a little packet of the pictures of the victims of the opiate crisis. I don't know if your viewers can see this, but I can tell you the story behind every person in this wallet. This is Joel Archer. And Gosh, every one of these people. And these are stories that they haunt me in the dark of night. I carry this so I always remember the sense of urgency on a failed battle against this scourge of opiates that have inflicted the countryside. It's impacted every mom and dad, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa. We need someone who understands this, who's fought in those country, in those valleys, in those school districts, who's embraced moms and dads at the point of their greatest grief. I can tell you that when I announced I was going to run for Attorney General, a lady named Melody Douglas, a mom of Victoria Douglas, who unfortunately lost her life to an overdose, called and said, "Would you mind if I attended your announcement?" It was an honor, and it's a true honor. And so I'm one of those folks. It's interesting. I've been around the political process most of my life, but I'm not a political person. I just believe in getting jobs done. And sometimes I can be a bit abrupt. I can be pretty straight. So I'm a straight shooter, and sometimes I may not say it real pretty, and I can come right at you. But I'm passionate in believing that the people of West Virginia need someone like me in that job. And so while my opponents are running to be Attorney General, I'm running to do Attorney General. And whether it's your Second Amendment rights, where my opponents have been anti-gun, J.B. McCuskey, a good guy, who's the state auditor. Listen, he voted not once, not twice, 3 times against concealed carry in West Virginia. I think you're disqualified from being the Attorney General in West Virginia if you don't support the Second Amendment. My other opponent, like I said, 2 pieces of blackberry pie or blackberry cobbler, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But my other opponent single-handedly in a Senate committee blocked campus carry in West Virginia. This is just one of the concerns I have. And so, unlike any other position in state government, whether it's governor or state auditor or treasurer, Attorney General is the one that's going to back you when it comes to your Second Amendment rights, where it comes to fighting the EPA, where it comes to try to protect your coal job. And so over the past few days, I think I've heard my opponents talk a lot about their feelings for each other. They're good friends. I respect that. You know whose feelings I care about? I care about that coal miner who's afraid he's going to lose his job. Yeah. And I care about that mom and dad who lost their daughter or their son to an opiate overdose. It's not that I'm not empathetic, and I want them to have their friendship and go out there and campaign on the issues. But we don't have time for this. This is about the Attorney General job in West Virginia, and who's tough enough to take on these special interests and fight for the people of West Virginia. I think that's me. And as much as I'm willing to serve in that role, I think the people of West Virginia need me to serve in that role.
Yeah. Well, I think you've already answered this question indirectly. My last question to you is, what are the characteristics that make a good Attorney General for West Virginia?
Yeah, I appreciate this question, and I could talk about this for a while. Listen, I think you need a pretty tough personality in there. Unlike what we've seen in the past, if you look across the country, the real pushback against liberal, radical policies, crazy environmentalists, is the Attorney General's office. Right now, we got a pistol brace rule that the ATF is proposing that would unfairly, I think, hit veterans and sportsmen who might need a pistol brace because of a disability to be able to use their handgun. And today, we're under assault from a Second Amendment standpoint. I don't think we can possibly afford. It's not a matter of whether you think I'm the nice guy you want over for Thanksgiving dinner. It's a question of who's going to protect your back so your Thanksgiving dinner has some food you went out and hunted and are able to put on the table. And so I think what we need is an Attorney General, somebody who's been there, done that. The budget and the operation I ran as U.S. Attorney is larger and probably more sophisticated than our Attorney General's office. And so I'll slip right into that job day one, not having to learn how to do it. I've been there, done that. Largest raid in the history of West Virginia. Operation Saigon Sunset, when I took over as U.S. Attorney, Huntington was under assault from drug dealers from Detroit and Columbus. I came in and immediately, within a week, visited with the mayor of Huntington and said, we have to deal with this. There's the day you are named U.S. Attorney, and then there's the day you become U.S. Attorney. And I'll never forget that day at the Huntington Police Department, where I went into a meeting of all federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, every single one of them. And I said, today, we need to plan the process for the largest law enforcement operation in the history of our state, with the understanding that the headline we want is, we've come to take our streets back. I wanted that spectacle where people would understand. We literally planned out that operation with every single federal, state, and local law enforcement agency. Every single one had to be engaged and effective. On that day, I still remember getting messages and texts from folks who said, I love hearing those helicopters in the air. And I love reader comments, because it's easy for somebody to come on here and speak with you or other candidates to tell us what they believe on a particular day. It changes with politicians. I think you got to look at their records. But I love reader comments. I love people who live throughout West Virginia. It's a common sense you don't get from some of these policymakers. But I love one of these folks who said, oh no, Stuart has helicopters. I think they understood Stuart's serious about this. And so I was driven and passionate about the role of U.S. Attorney. I was built to be U.S. Attorney, and I'm built to be the Attorney General of West Virginia. I think what we need is a no-nonsense, a tough operator who understands the law, who's worked in the federal system, who's prepared to file those suits, who doesn't need a lot of folks sending them messages saying, I love you, man. We need somebody who's willing to fight for the moms and dads, the grandmas, grandpas, brothers, and sisters who've been devastated by the opiate crisis, but also understands who he is and what he's fighting for. And it's for our people. It's for our people. Not for a position, not for stepping stone. It's too much important work that has to be done in that office.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll get plenty of invitations for this Thanksgiving. Senator Mike Stuart, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Now we're joined by candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Derrick Evans. Derrick, you have a unique perspective on the recent news that Donald Trump may be facing indictment for his alleged role in the January 6th protests. Can you speak to that?
Look, as most people know by now, I was a January 6th political prisoner. I got out in October of 2022, last October. And ever since I've gotten out, I've been telling anyone who would listen that they are coming after President Trump. It was very evident from all the questions that they had throughout my own, 18-month legal battle. It was all surrounding, President Trump. I believe that a lot of these January 6 charges and convictions, if you want to call them that, in this corrupt D.C. court system was all in place to lay the groundwork to eventually go after President Trump. And that's their long-term plan, is to go after him.
Mm-hmm. Well, recently you traveled to President Trump's golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, and spoke alongside the president. Tell us about that experience.
Oh man, it was awesome. President Trump is, he's an amazing person. I think most people know that. But what you don't see, I guess on TV it doesn't come through, is just what a big heart he has, and just how humble and a kind person he really is when he's able to be himself. He's always on guard from the media, always out to try to get him, and so you see a little bit different side of him. But in person, you get to see the big-hearted President Trump that you hear so many stories about from years ago, and people come forward. And it was awesome. He had a fundraiser at Bedminster, and I was one of the guest speakers there. And I got to speak to the crowd and share my January 6th story. And then I was privileged to have a private conversation with President Trump as well. So it was great.
Yeah. Well, you announced on January 6th of this year that you were running for Congress in West Virginia's 1st Congressional District. Why did you decide to run now?
Well, look, I've been telling everyone we're in a battle right now for the future of this country. I'd remind everyone, yesterday was a January 6th political prisoner such as myself that they came and arrested. Today, they're going after President Trump. And tomorrow, if they have their way, it's going to be every single God-fearing American Christian across this country. And so this is not the time for people who want to play patty cake politics. We need patriots who are willing to step up, and people who are battle tested and are willing to take this on. Look, the weaponization of government should concern every single citizen across this country. There are only 2 candidates in the country who fully understand that from a personal standpoint, and that's myself and President Trump.
Yeah. Well, help our viewers learn a little bit more about yourself. What are the differences between you and incumbent Carol Miller?
Well, I mean, look, I think she's a nice lady. I have nothing negative to say about her as a person at all. But look, once again, this is not the time for meek grandmothers to be playing, sitting in the country club, sipping tea, doing nothing while the radical left steamrolls our country. This is a time for patriots to step up. And some of the biggest differences is, look, I'm a Ron Paul type of Republican. I'm a Tea Party, America First conservative. I don't believe in sending all this money to Ukraine. Miss Miller, Congresswoman Miller, has voted to send billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. I do not agree with that agenda. It's time to put America first. I did not support the COVID vaccine mandates and the lockdowns. I was actually thrown in solitary confinement for refusing the COVID vaccine while they're holding me hostage, while Congresswoman Miller has not only supported those vaccine mandates and lockdowns and everything throughout the process, even as recent as just a few weeks ago in the middle of July in 2023, she was one of only 83 Republicans to vote with the Democrats to continue forcing airline pilots to receive the vaccine if they want to go to work. So we're over 3 years removed from COVID now, and she's still supporting the big pharma mandates and lockdowns. And so, look, that I don't agree with any of that. I believe in individual freedom, individual liberty, and this is one of the reddest districts in the entire country. This is not a district where we need a purple representative. This is a district we deserve a Matt Gaetz, a Lauren Boebert, someone who's going to stand on the national stage and beat the drum of freedom, not only for West Virginia, but for every single God-fearing American Christian across this country. And that's exactly what I have been doing and what I will continue to do.
Now, aside from your experiences related to January 6th, what are the main issues that you're focused on for this district in West Virginia?
Once again, the biggest thing is giving us a voice. Look, this is one of the reddest districts in the country. I get so frustrated when I see the same people over and over, and I'm thankful for them, on the national stage, beating that drum of freedom for conservative values. West Virginia doesn't have that right now. We deserve someone who's going to be leading the charge, putting West Virginia on the map and speaking out on these issues, and someone who has the courage to grab this bull of corruption by the horns and attempt to take it down. Look, people don't want to attack back to the radical left because they are fearful of the repercussions that come with that. So I understand that, but this is not the time for someone who's going to do that. I have proven that I can take one on the chin from this corrupt government, the corrupt media, and continue to speak out. And that is what we're going to have if we want to, have a voice in D.C. West Virginia, particularly Southern West Virginia, deserves to have a strong conservative voice representing us in D.C.
You recently have been endorsed by Trump ally Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Can you speak to that endorsement?
Yeah, look, Mike's become a friend of mine throughout this entire process as well, and it's a great honor. He's a true warrior for election integrity, as everybody knows, leading that battle. He's lost millions of dollars in his fight for this country and attempting to, secure our elections. And I think it speaks volumes that, Mike Lindell looked at this race and said, Derrick Evans is the person that I trust to secure our elections moving forward. I don't think anyone can look back at 2020 or 2022 for that matter and say that the elections were secure. We have major issues right now in this country with our election integrity. And as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be treated as a matter of national security. And we got to get rid of the machines, and we got to start, getting back to the basics to where our elections are secure. We can come together after election night and accept the results and move forward as a country. But right now, neither side is trusting the system or the process. And look, you can't look back at 2020 and say the election was stolen and then disagree with my actions on January 6th. If you believe in your heart that the 2020 election was stolen, then I would argue that January 6th in a lot of ways did not go far enough. And I'm not saying anyone need to be violent or anything like that, but you can't on one hand say that the election was stolen and then turn around and fault someone for having the courage to stand up against a tyranny and a stolen election in this country. So I think it goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Derrick Evans, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Appalachian Festival is August 19th through the 27th in Beckley. The festival is organized by the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce. And today we're joined by Michelle Rodolini with the Chamber. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, nice to see you.
Great to have you with us. Well, the festival is now in its 28th year. Wow, almost 3 decades. Tell us what makes this event a success in the past and what to expect this year.
So this week-long festival celebrates the Appalachian culture, and it gives us an opportunity to showcase all of the things that are unique to our area, all of the things that were formed throughout our history back in the early 1900s when lots of migrant workers came here to help build our whole energy industry that was based around coal mining. A lot of those traditions were formed then, and the festival is just a way that we continue to celebrate that. So we really do kick it off at our exhibition coal mine, which was ranked one of the top 10 small museums in the country to visit. It's really the only opportunity that someone has to be able to go into a coal mine. And we celebrate with a honey festival that day. And so that kicks off the festival on the 19th, and then it's just 10 days of events every single day.
And tell us a bit about the impact that this has on the community. Obviously, it's been around now for nearly 30 years. So clearly it means a lot to the community.
Yes, so I think, it's nostalgic for some. Some folks just love the fact that we celebrate what's often maybe frowned upon. All of those things that are Appalachia have had a negative image in the past, but now they're celebrated. Things like the fact that the Golden Delicious apple was invented here in West Virginia, our honey culture. So for a lot of folks, it's nostalgic. And then, of course, it has economic impact because people are looking for day trips, especially, post-COVID. People aren't, just ready to necessarily, jump on a plane and go across country for their entertainment. They like to just do local trips with families. Van life is hugely popular now. So we have a lot of people that come to our area and visit our campgrounds during the festival so that they can go out and see some of the live music and taste some of the interesting food at our restaurant week.
Yes. And can you tell us a little bit more about some of the entertainment that's going to be there, some of the other things that people can nibble on and see and smell and hear and taste?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a courtyard concert at Tamarack Marketplace. So Tamarack is a destination in southern West Virginia, and there will be a concert on August 19th from 12 to 3 p.m. Also, we have a nostalgic vinyl record shop in our downtown area called Vinyl Tracks, and they're having Sprouts and Spins on Saturday the 20th. We also have Fridays in the Park. So on the Friday of the festival, we'll have several bands throughout the day. And also at our Makers Market, we have live music. So lots of things going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like it's a very family-friendly event. So people of all ages can come?
Yes, absolutely. There are activities for the youth at the library. There are walks on our trail. And all ages will enjoy the festival, especially the end when it culminates at our Makers Market. That's nostalgic for a lot of people because they remember going there as a child and having the hard rock candy or the homemade fudge and seeing all the crafts that are made.
Yeah, most definitely. And do you need tickets for this event, or how does one gain access?
So the events are listed on our website, which is appalachianfestival.net, and many of the events are free. Some events do have a small admission charge, usually $5 to $10. I don't think any of the events are more expensive than that.
Okay. And if you can give our viewers one last look at the days and places where people can visit.
Yeah, so starting on August 19th, and that day kicks off at our Honey Festival at our exhibition coal mine, and we also have live music at Tamarack. Starting on Sunday starts our Appalachian Restaurant Week, and so many of our locally owned restaurants will feature Appalachian-inspired menu items that week. And so on the website, you can see all of the restaurants that are participating. During the week, we have moonwalk and different reading events at the library. But then on the last weekend, which is the 25th and 26th of August, we have our 58th Makers Market. And this is what many know as the Arts and Crafts Festival when they were growing up. It's at our convention center, and we have outdoor vendors that are making things like funnel cake cakes and kettle corn and barbecue. And then we have all of our makers, including blacksmiths and wrought iron, wreaths, pottery, ceramics, candles, just all kinds of unique things that you can buy for giving or your home. And then we end the festival with a street fair in our downtown area on Saturday at 6 p.m.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for all that information. And again, what's the website where people can learn more?
AppalachianFestival.net.
Terrific. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.